Hi, everyone. All right. Happy Thursday. Happy Friday. The weekend is right ahead of us. Okay. I hope everyone is doing well. Yes? Okay. All right. Let's get started. How South Korea's martial drama affects geopolitics. Uh, South Korean President. Oh, excuse me. Oh, that's YouTube telling me I'm live. Yoon Suk-yeol. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Declared martial law on Tuesday in the evening. It became worldwide headlines. 190 Korean legislators defied the order and gathered at the parliament and voted to overturn the presidential order. 6 hours later, President Yoon ended the martial law under pressure. Korea's defense minister and a number of President Yoon's aides resigned, and the president is now facing impeachment from opposition led by the Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung. The impeachment vote is scheduled on Saturday. Now, on the surface, it's the inevitable outcome of an exhausting political struggle between Korea's two major political parties. Now, I think at the core of this conflict lies the complex relationship between South Korea, China, and the United States. Beijing's growing influence in South Korea poses a greater threat than North Korea's missiles. And I think President Yoon has failed to convince his countrymen at this point in his 2 years in office, resulting in this drama. So tonight, I will first talk about Yoon's martial law and why it failed. And then I will spend a good chunk of tonight to talk about China's influence in South Korea. Last but not least, how this drama, it hasn't ended yet. We're going to see how the impeachment vote will come out on Saturday, but how it will impact on Taiwan and geopolitics. First things first, let's talk about President Yoon a little bit. He's known for his direct communication style and strong-willed personality, which in theory should be good. There are good traits for a national leader, right? Direct communication and strong-willed personality, in theory or traditionally, is good. It's qualities of a strong leader. However, somehow it becomes his liabilities in Korea, and he's often criticized for being politically inexperienced, because he transitioned from a prosecutor to a president. So he was formerly South Korea's prosecutor general, and joined the conservative PPP, People Power Party, PPP, to run for president in 2021. He narrowly won the 2022 presidential election, defeating Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung by 250,000 votes. It was the closest presidential election in South Korea. His opponent, Lee Jae-myung, is a liberal who compares himself with American liberal senator Bernie Sanders. So this is the Korean Bernie Sanders. Now, Lee's Democratic Party has a 175-seat majority in the parliament, versus the 108 seats by Yoon's People Power Party. Comparing the two parties, the Democratic Party holds, Lee's Democratic Party holds, and I shouldn't say anti-US, but more like pro-China and North Korea friendly stances, and more hard on the US and Japan. Whereas Yoon and his People Power Party is more hardline towards North Korea and China and pro-Japan and the US. The martial law incident highlights the ongoing tug of war between the pro-China and the anti-China factions in South Korea, or in South Korea's political circles, and in my opinion, expose the CCP's deep influence in South Korea. It hasn't come out yet, but I think over time, the long-term impact of this drama is that it will expose CCP's deep influence in South Korea. Although President Yoon may have to pay a price for it, but I think the long-term consequences of this is good. Now, since becoming the president, Yoon resumed. Here are a list of things he did. Okay, so he resumed large-scale military exercises with the U.S., which were suspended by his predecessor, President Moon Jae-in, who took a much softer position on North Korea and China. By the way, Moon belongs to the Democratic Party. Yoon reinforced the alliance with the US, and this includes the establishment of a nuclear consultative group to enhance US extended deterrence in the region. Yoon also took significant steps to normalize and strengthen relations with Japan, leading South Korea and Japan's relations weren't that positive historically because of World War II. But Yoon has taken significant steps to normalize the relations. And this led to increased trilateral security cooperation among South Korea, the US, and Japan in response to North Korea and China's threats. However, his approval rating has dropped to be around 20% recently, and someone even says 17%. That's terrible, right? So what are the reasons? Well, I just gave you his biggest accomplishments. He has, he's, there are other, from a geopolitical point of view, in the context of some regional security and U.S., China, and South Korea relations, that was the list of accomplishments I gave. Of course, there are other ones. But there are several reasons for his unpopularity. First is the poor post-pandemic economy has upset many South Koreans. And secondly, it's the scandals involving his wife and also his wife's mother. And in the case of his wife, actually we'll have pictures. Here we go. His wife's picture, his wife for plagiarism and also accepting expensive, here are the protests, you've seen that. His opponent, here's his wife. The woman is beautiful. She's 53 years old. 52 or 53? Maybe 52. But she looks great for her age. So scandals, her scandals, or she was, I don't know, alleged plagiarism and also accepting expensive handbags as gifts. The Koreans also commented on her fondness of cosmetic surgery. So that's his liability number two. And also third is the Koreans are a little wary of Yoon's direct and commanding style. I don't think that's necessarily a weakness. If he can use that to his advantage, it could be a plus. But if you ask me, there are not like terrible things he did to deserve that kind of unpopularity, right? The economy, yes, but the poor economy is a worldwide problem, and it's not just unique to the South Koreans. I'm sure President Yoon can do much better, but if you really think about it, it's his wife's scandal. Picking on his wife, in my opinion, is making a mountain out of a molehill, because it's not. If he practiced plagiarism and has accepted expensive gifts in exchange for favor, that would be terrible. So let me come back. So that would be terrible, but it's her, and also they've only been married for 12 years. So I don't know when the plagiarism took place. It could be even before they got married. So in the scheme of things, you wonder, well, that, you wonder where the unpopularity really came from. Now, Yoon provided two main reasons for declaring martial law, right? One is the Democratic Party-controlled parliament has filed 22 impeachment cases against his government officials. 10 officials have been consecutively impeached. And he said that's a situation unprecedented, both globally and also in South Korea historically. And the second thing is he criticized the Democratic Party for using the budget as a political weapon. The cuts include financial support for families with children and improved benefits for military servicemen, and also budget for police, fighting drug trafficking, infrastructure, and so on. So from Yoon's perspective, the parliament has paralyzed the function of his government and what he called the legislative dictatorship. Okay, I love that term. Legislative dictatorship, through manipulation of parliamentary procedures, has pushed the nation into crisis, rendering the government non-functional. We all know his martial law declaration failed due to procedural, logistical, and public trust issues. First, the declaration was deemed unconstitutional as it lacked the required parliamentary notification and approval. Second, the military was unprepared for the sudden announcement. Only a few units, including the Ministry of Defense, initially supported the declaration, while other government agencies and military units were left uninformed and uncoordinated. Last but not least, the historical sensitivity of South Korea's traumatic history with martial law during the 1979 assassination of Park Chung-hee, and also the 1980 Gwangju uprising. With memories of the past military rules fueling widespread resistance, those on the left and on the right both didn't welcome the sudden declaration. But I think his real failure is that after more than 2 months, 2 years, after more than 2 years in office, President Yoon has failed to convince South Koreans that their country is facing bigger threats from China than from North Korea. China's pervasive influence in South Korean society is more damning than North Korea's missiles, and that South Korea is better off siding with the US than siding with China. President Yoon has this vision himself, but he has failed to convince his countrymen this vision. Now, South Koreans need to understand that North Korea is not the only country bringing communist influence to the Korean Peninsula. China, as South Korea's largest trading partner, has infiltrated their country quietly. So now let me talk about CCP's extensive influence on South Korea. First of all, China is South Korea's largest trade partner. 30% of its trade is with China. A former counterintelligence officer who remained anonymous said in a media interview that from the economy, culture to higher education, there's not an area that hasn't been infiltrated. And so I'm going to give you some specific examples. Now, nearly 700 friendship or sister city agreements have been signed between cities in China and South Korea. And this makes South Korea probably the country, I think it's the country with the most sister cities with China, 700. I think the second country is the US with 289 cities that have a sister, that has a friendship relation with a Chinese city. So South Korea has 700. I think they rank number one, although I haven't formally verified that. And then South Korea is also the country that has the most Confucius institutes in the world. At its peak, South Korea had dozens of Confucius institutes. However, the country only has a population of 57 million. The CCP funded language education programs aimed to promote Beijing's agenda. There's a retired Korean intelligence service case officer, I think her name is I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Choi Soo-yoon, said that Seoul National University has a room dedicated to Xi Jinping's works. In contrast, the university does not have a memorial hall for South Korea's forefathers. Now, also, through state-sponsored public servant exchange programs, hundreds of Chinese officials have been sent to work and train in South Korea. And scores and a large number of South Korean officials or even retired officials have been on the paid tours or trips to China. So China has exerted its influence in foreign countries through this type of training programs. So for example, China has sent many of its up-and-coming high-ranking officials to be trained at Harvard University, the Kennedy School in the US. But it has turned the Kennedy School into its party school. I have a friend who went there, went there for a master's degree at the Kennedy Center. And he told me that the Kennedy School has become like a CCP party school. So how do you think the CCP has infiltrated American media? Similarly, through these type of mutual training programs in which the Chinese invited Western journalists to travel in China while sending Chinese journalists to be trained in the West. And also, the Chinese embassy has funded many South Korean youth to spend a week in China. And before their departure, they're asked to read Xi Jinping's speeches and are told they're expected to become future leaders of bilateral relations. I know exactly how these things are done, okay? First, we entice you to sign up for the program. They will never tell you that you need to read Xi Jinping's speeches before you go. They never tell you that there's any strings attached. So they just tell you you're being offered a free week in China. You know, there are people, parents and kids want to sign up. But then they're going to tell you, oh, you know, we have a little assignment to do before departure. Yeah, you know, please read, you know, as courtesy, you know, to be polite to the hosting organization, would you please read Xi Jinping's speeches and share with us your thoughts? I mean, you think like, wow, you know, I mean, they pay for my trip, you know, all I have to do is just read some speeches. So fine, okay, I'll just read it. And then the next thing they're going to ask you, you know, what do you think about becoming a future leader of bilateral relations? Don't you love China? Isn't that wonderful that China and South Korea become ever closer? And would you want to play a role in that initiative? I mean, that's just how they get people to sign on. And then by the time you can't even say no. And then you feel so good about it, you know, because you have a all expenses paid trip to China. You're probably not going to say anything bad about it. Anyways, that happens all the time and everywhere. Anyways, and then in 2023, the mayor of Gwangju, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Gwangju, South Korea, attempted to build a memorial park to commemorate the composer of the PLA's army anthem and North Korean march songs, with the aim to attract Chinese tourists. Could you imagine building a memorial park dedicating to a Chinese composer who wrote the PLA's song and the North Koreans' marching songs in South Korea with the purpose to attract Chinese tourists? I don't even think the Chinese tourists are interested in hearing that song, to be honest with you. Why would South Koreans want to? I mean, the Chinese tourists would be more interested in hearing South Korean songs, their pop, their soap opera, I mean, their culture. They're not interested in seeing, you know, one of their, you know, the PLA composer in South Korea. Come on. I think the South Koreans have been so influenced. Okay, the author of the book, The Collapse of North Korea, Tara Oh, said in a media interview that compared to the threats from North Korea, the CCP's subversive activities in South Korea are less well known and less recognized, but are extensive and profound. And he called it the above-mentioned Park Project an aspect of China's culture warfare. So you have cultural warfare and then you have media warfare, right? So Korean media outlets are influenced by the CCP through the media, similar like exchange programs or training programs. Dozens of South Korean media outlets reprint articles from the People's Daily, CCP's propaganda mouthpiece. Now, in addition to all of the above-mentioned efforts, aim to influence the Korean elites, right? In media, in academia, in commerce, in government. So all of the above try to influence the Korean elites. Now, the CCP also has another great advantage in South Korea. That is, China has more than 800,000 Korean Chinese. And not Chinese Koreans, they're Korean Chinese. They're called Joseonjuk. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Joseonjuk. So they're Koreans, but they're Chinese citizens. There are 800,000 of them living in South Korea. And the CCP has effective control over them, and they carry out united front work as part of its human wave tactics. Now, think about it. You may think if you're American, you think 800,000 maybe is not a large population, because in the U.S. we have 4 million, officially 4 million ethnic Chinese. Unofficially, it's like, I think it's double the amount. I think it's 8 million Chinese living in this country. But the census tells you 4 million. Anyways, you think that's a small number. But South Korea's population is only 57 million. So 800,000 in a country of 57 million is a huge size of a huge percentage of the population. Now, the Korean Chinese living in Korea help spread CCP's narratives on social media, and they infiltrate Korean communities at the grassroots levels. I'm not saying that they all do that. I'm not saying that, but if they still have business or family in China, then they have to follow certain rules and guidelines within their community. So it's very difficult for them to to break free from CCP's control. Same problem in the U.S. Okay, so because of their size, they can influence election results. In the U.S., you can't, because the Chinese American community is still small. The Hispanic community can because of their size. But in South Korea, the Chinese can influence the election results. So, for example, in the 2022 election, Yoon Suk-yeol won by a slim margin of only 250,000 votes. Okay, 250,000 votes, and you have 800,000 Korean Chinese. So, and in some regional or mayoral elections, the candidates won by a narrow margin of only like tens of thousands of votes. So they can affect South Korean elections. However, the lack of awareness of the growing Chinese population in South Korea among South Korean politicians, including members of the National Assembly, is very concerning. Korean legislatures have even proposed to, quote, accept large members of Joseonjuk, or Korean Chinese immigrants. So they propose bills to accept a large number of Korean Chinese. And they want to allow foreign nationals to join political parties and be able to vote. I think the Chinese is the largest group of foreign nationals living in South Korea. And they also want to simplify the entry procedures and conditions for international students while issuing work visas to their parents. This is like allowing more Chinese to legally work in South Korea. I think this is the Korean version of open borders, but the difference between them and then the Americans is that the Americans open the borders to anyone, but the South Koreans seem to open the borders just for the Chinese. And one Korean official said that if the current trend of granting citizenship and permanent residency to Korean Chinese, if this trend continues unchecked, in 30 years, CCP will control South Korea. In 30 years, South Korea will become a colony of China. So and then one Chinese observer said that even Kim Jong-un of North Korea is wary of CCP's ambition or ambition to control, right? So they say it's alarming that the South Koreans are ignorant of that. So they're saying the South Koreans are not even as smart as Kim Jong-un, because Kim Jong-un doesn't trust the CCP at all. With all that said, President Yoon has been trying to reverse years of appeasement towards Beijing. He has done a lot for South Korea, but somehow his effort has not been understood or appreciated by his countrymen. And I think it has to do with his strong opponents he has in the national parliament, and his opponents are highly critical of his policy. So here's the issue. So people are saying that if Yoon is impeached and steps down, Lee Jae-myung will become the next Korean president. However, if the Korean Bernie Sanders is in charge, I'm afraid the weakest link in the security of the Pacific will not be Taiwan, but will be South Korea, because the Taiwanese society has also been infiltrated by the Chinese, but at least they understand the threat. They live, on the daily basis with the threat. They're aware of CCP's egregious behavior and ambition. But the South Koreans are not even aware. So that's why people say, should Yoon to step down and the Korean Bernie Sanders, to become the next Korean president, then the weakest link in the Pacific, in the security of the Pacific, will be South Korea. At a campaign rally in March, Lee Jae-myung, the head of the guy who lost the election to President Yoon in 2022, he criticized Yoon's attitude towards China. And I want to play you a short video where he joked about Yoon's policy towards Taiwan and China. And so here it is. It's very short. It's even like 25 seconds. Let me. He mocked him. Let me. How do I make this bigger? Oh, here we go. Yeah. Oh, I have to start from the beginning. Okay. If you understand Korean, you can appreciate what he says. And my translation is based on the Chinese. I don't understand Korean, but the video came with Chinese subtitles, so I translated the Chinese subtitles. So if there are discrepancies, in translation, so please understand it was not translated from the original. It was from the Chinese. Here we go. 왜 중국어 직접 버려요? 그냥 쎄쎄.
대만에도 센스. 이러면 되지. 뭐 자꾸 여기저기 집적거리고 무슨 양안 문제 우리가 왜 개입합니까? 대만 해비 뭘 어떻게 되든 중국과 대만 국내 문제가 어떻게든 우리가 뭔 상관 있어요?
Okay. What do you think? I have trouble. I have trouble with his statement. Seriously. If following Lee's logic, I mean, if this guy becomes the next Korean president, and if we follow his logic, the U.S. should not have led the United Nations forces to help South Korea during the Korean War. And if North Korea shelled or shells Seoul, it wouldn't be the business of the U.S. to step in. If we follow his logic, that's essentially what he's saying, right? If North Korea, bombed Seoul, then he's saying that that's internal affair between him and then Kim. It has nothing to do. The U.S. should not step in. I mean, I think that's just outrageous. So let me talk about the impact. So should that happen, should President Yoon be impeached and steps down and this guy becomes the next president, which is very likely. That's what people are saying. Although I think the opposition doesn't have the 8 votes they need, because the Korean law requires 2/3 of the parliament to vote yes for the impeachment. So they have a 300-member parliament. So they need 200 votes. They need 200 members, legislators, to vote for the impeachment, in favor of the impeachment. They only have 192. So all the opposition parties, the large and small parties combined, they only have 192. They need another 8 votes to impeach President Yoon. And then, so far as I know, the PPP, the People Power Party, which Yoon belongs to, has showed their solidarity. And so if none of their members vote with the opposition, then this impeachment will fall apart. So let's hope that happens. But let's talk about if the impeachment was successful, what does that mean to Taiwan, right? I think the CCP would be very delighted for a number of reasons. One, it can use the same tactic on Taiwan, as Taiwan's situation is somewhat similar. Taiwan faces similar cognitive warfare from the CCP. And then Taiwan society has been highly infiltrated. If South Korea's new government improves relations with Taiwan, creating a gap in the US-driven alliance in Northeast Asia or in the Pacific, the CCP engineered skepticism towards the US will gain traction in Taiwan, because that's the narrative the CCP has been pushing in Taiwan. And the second thing is, like South Korea, Taiwan also faces a situation where the opposition party dominates the legislature, the legislative body. Earlier this year, we've already witnessed major chaos in Taiwanese legislative yuan over parliamentary reforms. The chaos also resulted in public protest. In a nutshell, William Lai has the same challenge as President Yoon. The CCP is happy to see Taiwan's opposition forces confront the Lai administration in the same manner. And also, someone just told me that Taiwan has yet to pass its government budget for next year. Now, if a pro-China leader such as Lee Jae-min succeeds Yoon, China can break the US-Taiwan-South Korea alliance in the chip war. This is currently the Biden administration has sought cooperation from South Korea in the effort to limit Beijing's access to advanced chip technology. If South Korea becomes a passive participant, then Beijing will see great hope in breaking the U.S. high-tech sanctions. Now, the South Korean martial law drama has already affected Taiwanese politics. What became news in Taiwan was that William Lai's DPP, Democratic Progressive Party, I don't know which department, but someone, whether it's, I don't know who it is, but someone in DPP posted a note in support of Yoon's martial law and later deleted it. This somehow was caught by a Korean media. So it became the subject of attack by media in South Korea. And then the DPP's opposition in Taiwan, which is KMT, Kuomintang, KMT, Kuomintang, picked up the South Korean media and saying that what a disgrace, how disgraceful it is that the DPP has supported Yoon's martial law. So if you really think about it, it's kind of fishy. South Korean media reported Taiwanese government's deleted social media post, and then Taiwanese media quoted the South Koreans. And then DPP's opposition picked up, both media reports. It's hard to believe that Beijing is not behind this synchronized PR efforts across two countries. That's just my point. So the martial law incident in South Korea should serve as a warning to the Trump administration. In East Asia, managing relations with the U.S. also requires or managing relations managing relations with the U.S. requires addressing immense internal political pressures, which must be handled with sensitivity. But at the core, that's just the phenomena. But the core issue at the end, at the very bottom, at the root cause, is CCP's influence and infiltration. And also, perhaps from the South Korean perspective, they being pro-China and pro-US at the same time, meaning maintaining balance between both superpowers, would be their most advantageous strategy. Maybe that's their thinking. Maybe they're not so much pro-China. I just want to, give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think they're necessarily pro-China, but they want to strike a balance between China and the US. So they want to, however, I think this is wishful thinking. I don't think you could ever maintain that balance between the US and China. Neither side, you may lose both sides. So I hope the South Koreans can wake up to see that. And I think if there's any long-term positive impact from this martial law drama, it would be the awakening of the South Koreans to see how their country has been, how the CCP has infiltrated their country, and that President Yoon has really done what he could to help the South Koreans. I think he's just a little ahead of himself, or ahead of his countrymen, or he hasn't done a good job explaining this to his countrymen. And that's his predicament. But what he did is right. And all the complaints the South Koreans have about him, in my opinion, isn't major. I mean, of course, you want to have a wife who isn't embroiled in any scandals, but all the issues that they are complaining about him, in my opinion, isn't like major. It doesn't disqualify him. But we still don't know why he overreacted to the situation on Tuesday. So maybe in a few years we'll find out. But that's all I will say. So that's why I chose the thumbnail for this talk to be South Korea, the big picture. because I think we need to put everything into perspective, and I hope I have done that. I have done that for you. All right, okay. What do I have here? Okay. Let me go through the super stickers first. Okay. JK, you are so well in touch. Am I? Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you, JK. I thank you for the support. I do my homework. I do my homework. Okay, here's a question from Mark Pollard. Maybe this opposition guy should go live in North Korea as a commoner for a few years before condemning Taiwan to live under a dictator. Yeah, I hope so. But you see that today's politicians changes their positions like overnight. The other thing I was reminded is he could be saying that during election. I mean, this was March during election 2 years ago. But now, let's say people say if he does become the next president, he may also change. On the surface, you don't know what he thinks in their heart. I think the reason people don't trust our politicians today is they become too fake. They always say the right thing. They never said the wrong thing to upset people, but you don't know what they think deep inside. So that's why people, the politician has become a super publicist for their ideology, for whatever value they stand for. But you don't know what they really do and what they really think. And that's the problem. So that's why people are going back to the days when people love or elect politicians or people to be their politicians, those who say what they mean, whether you like them or not, but they let you know what they stand for. I think, but then people are saying that Lee Jae-myung may, switch position and all of a sudden become, hard on China because he needs to. So that's today's politicians. That's professional politicians today, unfortunately. So, A vegan T-Rex. I was in Seoul. Chinese are huge clients in the Korean plastic surgery and beauty industry. Maybe they don't want to antagonize Chinese politically. I mean, the Chinese are major clients in a lot of things. At one point, they were buying Korean real estate. They were, plastic surgery. But I don't think there aren't that many Chinese women who have actually the ones paying for the plastic surgery are probably men, not women. So I don't think there are that many wealthy Chinese men willing to spend, huge amount of money on their mistress's plastic surgery. I think the number of men who can afford a surgery in Korea has been significantly reduced. Your hair is beautiful. Oh, thank you. Thank you. JK. Well, thank you, JK. All right, let's see. Odd Dude says, I love that name. Odd Dude says, does China hold historical kingdom beliefs that China should influence Korea like during the Middle Kingdom days? Well, I think in the Middle Kingdom days, China doesn't, unlike CCP today, which has this ambition to influence everyone, to be everywhere, to dominate the world, to be in control of the world. Chinese culture, Confucius, Chinese emperors didn't necessarily have the ambition to rule Korea. I think it was the Chinese culture that was more influential than the emperor. I think Confucianism has a big influence in East Asia, and I think that's the power or the influence of Chinese culture rather than the emperors. Yeah. So I don't think the Chinese emperor say, hey, we need to rule over Korea. We need to rule over Japan. I don't think that's the case with the Chinese emperors. All right. You are part of a world movement. Am I? I'm not aware of what movement I'm part of. Okay, I assume that's pretty good. Okay, let me see. Alan Mandel, question: are you in favor of former Senator David Perdue to be ambassador to China? Trump appointed him today. David Perdue. The only thing that came to my mind is the chicken. Sorry. I think I don't really have any opinion. I think they should send someone. They should send someone who's not a career diplomat. That's my only idea. Because career diplomat can fall into the trap of the CCP. Because CCP, you don't need any diplomatic skills to deal with the Chinese. Because all your diplomatic skills are a waste when it comes to dealing with the CCP. There's no place for diplomacy when it comes to deal with the Chinese. So a career diplomat will be a disadvantage to us. That's all I can say. John S. Art, how much of South Korea's China policy is tied to the value of US dollar and oil? Like your shirt. Oh, okay, good. How much of China policy is tied to the value of US dollar and oil? Wow, that's a profound question, which I don't have an answer now. Sorry. I don't have an answer for you. I'm just going to be honest with you. But I'll keep that in mind and look into that. Okay, so let's see. Brian Cobb. Okay, wow. Okay. I had no idea South Korea had become so weak vis-a-vis China and North Korea. This is very disturbing. None of this has been reported in US mainstream media. Well done. Yes, I can give you more examples. It's serious, South Korea. It's worse than Japan. It's worse than Taiwan, only because the Taiwanese are aware of the threat coming from across the strait, whereas the South Koreans are not. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Dragon Believer. How many generations of Chinese people would it take to remove the CCP? And if so, what governing style should they fight for, in your opinion? How many generations? Well, since the CCP came in the 1949, how many generations? I would say 3 generations, right? 3 generations. So I think this is it. I think the current generation, I don't think the CCP can rule China for very long, given the way things are going in China. So I think 3 generations, that's all. And what governing style should they fight for, in my opinion? Well, I think at this point, the young generation will fight for a democratic China, where everyone will have the right to vote. Yeah. So, but who knows? It's hard to say. I have this feeling that China may even go back to the old emperors days. That's probably unlikely, but I think for now the default is a democratic system, like its neighbors, like Japan, South Korea, or even Taiwan. I mean, Taiwan is the perfect example. Taiwan is the closest example that the mainland China can copy. All right, that's all. All right, that's all. Lei is a fox, shiny hair fox. Wow. Is that a compliment? Oh, here's a question. From All Dude says, does China hold historical kingdom belief? I already answered that. Moonwalker, like Korean left-wing politicians are very good at distracting the Korean public on trivial matters, so they are unaware of what the CCP is doing. I think they will wise up after it is too late. I agree. You made a very good point. I think this whole martial law drama serves that purpose. I think I don't see it as a bad thing. I mean, President Yoon probably will have to pay a personal price for that. But over the long run, I think it's a positive thing. It forces South Koreans to recognize the problems that they have. I really see it as a positive thing. Of course, it will be a chaotic period, but after the dust has settled, I think it will bring out positive results in South Korea. That's what I believe in. All right. Oh, Haile, it's a compliment. Okay, good. All right, that's all. Okay, all right, that's all. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye. Bye.